Mercedes are in trouble for the Hungarian Grand Prix. So we're going to be going through that in today's video. But guys, don't forget to like this video. And if you do want more Mercedes F1 content like this, definitely subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. But let's get straight into today's story because Mercedes' performance at the 2022 F1 Hungarian Grand Prix has been criticized by fans. The 2022 F1 Hungarian Grand Prix weekend's Friday was not the best for Mercedes. On the track, the car didn't look good, and even in the timesheets, it seemed like the German team was stuck in the middle of the pack rather than challenging the leaders. The final ranking of both drivers in FP2 was even more disappointing for Mercedes supporters. Both George Russell and Lewis Hamilton remained in position P8 and P11 rather than closing in on the leaders. There are some of the reactions of F1 fans on Twitter who are upset about the Mercedes and how they actually did perform. Now, there was a lot said about it, and after the open practice sessions, Mercedes trackside engineer director Andrew Shovlin acknowledged that the team had tried some new things that didn't work out and that they would change them back to the next day. Shovlin declared, "I believe the ones we carried out in FP2 set us back. We appeared a little stronger in the first section. The car was better organized. There are a few things that will probably undo overnight because they didn't look good." Lewis Hamilton was not pleased with the day had turned out and was perplexed as to why the car's form varied so greatly from one track to the next. He stated, "The car is having some difficulty today. It's bizarre how much it veers from track to track, just getting things set up and figuring out how to get the car to run. It's not doing what we want it to right now because it's a little bit loose. This track isn't working as well for some reason. Once we got it right, the gap was about a second, similar to last week. There's no doubt that this weekend will be difficult." So I think it is really tough to say because obviously having such a great performance in the last Grand Prix on the Paul Ricard circuit, getting P2 and also P3 position, it is tough for Lewis Hamilton and also George Russell to be performing very poorly, especially in the Hungarian Grand Prix practice races. So it will be interesting to see if they can pull this off. Now, Lewis Hamilton finished 11th in the practice 2, like we talked about, and Lewis Hamilton says he's expecting a tough weekend in the Hungarian Grand Prix after more failed experiments left Mercedes well off the pace in practice 2. Following on from first double podium of the season at the French Grand Prix last weekend, there has been optimism that the Silver Arrows could build on the momentum, but they failed to do so in the Budapest heat on Friday. Now, I think this was honestly very, heartbreaking to see, especially for Mercedes fans out there, to seeing how good they performed in the French Grand Prix. A lot of people thought now is a chance. Mercedes have finally figured it out, and now, we're kind of striving towards greatness. However, with what's been happening in the practice sessions, it seems that they've fallen back. But like it's mentioned by Andrew Shovlin, it does seem they just were experimenting with a couple of things. After finishing 7th, 2 places behind teammate George Russell in the first session, Hamilton could only manage 11th in practice 2. This time, 3 places behind the younger Brit. Hamilton's final flying lap in FP2 was hampered by traffic, but he appeared on course only to challenge Fernando Alonso's Alpine in 6th, meaning he would have remained both behind Ferrari and Red Bull's Max Verstappen, and perhaps more concerningly, McLaren duo Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. Now, obviously, that is tough to see, especially for Mercedes and the level that they really push it at. And Hamilton actually said that the car is a little bit of a struggle, and it's crazy how much it swings from track to track. But yeah, we've got to figure out how to get it working, he said. At the moment, it's a little bit loose. While last weekend's double podium at the Paul Ricard was perhaps a little flattering, the Charles Leclerc retiring and Carlos Sainz starting from the back of the grid, Mercedes' race day performance in La Castellet had appeared to maintain the team on an upward trajectory. They have been off pace of Ferrari and Red Bull since the start of the campaign, with only an extremely strong reliability record allowing them to pick up the majority of the podium finishes they've managed this season. Nothing changed on the car since last weekend, and I'm the same driver this week as I was last week, Hamilton said. It's just, for some reason on this track, it's not working as well. But I think once we got it right, the gap is about to be the same as last week, around a second. I didn't get to run at the end because I had some damage. I sustained some damage on the floor, so after that, it was pretty tricky for the long run base. It's going to be a tough weekend, that's for sure, but we're going to give it everything. So, like Chauvelin said, it did look like the experiments that they decided to do actually set them back a few places. Now, the most encouraging thing for Mercedes on Friday evening was that the weather forecast is predicting totally different conditions for the rest of the weekend. After the heat and sunshine of Friday, thunderstorms are expected for both final practice and qualifying on Saturday, while there will be significantly cooler temperatures for Sunday's race. In a way, that makes it not too bad that we've had a difficult FP2, because I think we'll be facing quite different conditions in FP3 and in qualifying, and then the race looks like it's a little cooler than it is today, Chauvelin added. It's guesswork, really, whether you're going to be better or worse. Montreal, we were okay in the wet. Silverstone, we were okay. When we are today, I think we'd take a wet session just because it gives us sort of a bigger potential upside. But we'll see. We'll need to get running in FP3 and see what we're dealing with. Now, obviously, that is pretty confident to say that, if they decide to see a little bit of rain, they might actually perform better. But I do see Mercedes really do very, very well in those conditions. And it seems that the level playing field really starts to play out. Now, Russell also offered an optimistic take on the team's difficult day. Definitely not our smoothest Friday so far, but a bit of a strange one because we think we're going to get wet tomorrow for qualifying, he said. The conditions on Sunday are going to be drastically different, so we're trying quite a few things with the car, using it as a test session because, to be honest, you can try and optimize everything for today, but there is no use for that for the rest of the weekend. So even though it was a very tough day, I think it was a productive one. We were definitely a little bit further away than we probably would have expected, a couple of issues here and there, but I think tomorrow is going to be a totally different day, and Sunday will be a very different day, so not all is lost just yet. And I do highly agree with him. Yes, they are experimenting, and yes, they did perform poorly, but with the conditions changing, it doesn't really matter, and it does seem like Chauvelin is going to move back to his old ways on what has actually happened, so it will be good to see how that falls out. Now, F1 car experiments have sent Mercedes backwards like we've talked about, and after a fairly competitive showing in FP1, Mercedes have struggled in pace in second practice, with George Russell ending Friday as the fairest driver at 8th, 0.9 tenths slower than Charles Leclerc benchmark. So it was tough to see that, and especially us as Mercedes fans, I think it's really hard to see them really perform badly, even below, someone such as Daniel Ricciardo or Lando Norris. Now, no disrespect to them. I think they are great drivers, but Mercedes have always been, that level, and they've always been up there with Red Bull and Ferrari, and it is tough to see how they have fallen a little bit, especially in the first, starts to the weekend. Now, Ferrari Charles Leclerc finished fastest in second practice for this weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix, and the driver was actually 0.217 seconds ahead of McLaren's Lando Norris and 0.231 seconds ahead of teammate Carlos Sainz. Championship leader Max Verstappen was fourth, within a tenth of a second of Sainz, albeit with limited running on the quicker soft compound tire. Even near perfection from here until the end of the season may not be enough for Leclerc to take the driver's title. He trails defending champions Verstappen by 63 points after a nightmare race in France last week where he crashed from the lead. With 10 rounds to go, including the race this weekend, the Ferrari driver could theoretically win every round and still not take the driver's title. Mercedes, like we talked about, have experienced an up and down progress in the past month and had another difficult session with George Russell in 8th and 9/10 down from Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton in 11th, 1.1 seconds off the pace. Last weekend on Paul Ricard, the defending Constructors champions scored their best result of the season with a double podium, as Hamilton finished second and Russell third. Yet their recent progress has been nothing if not lumpy, and their one-lap pace at the Hungarian on Grand Prix Friday was concerning. The car was a bit of a struggle, like Hamilton said, and I have to keep in mind that we have to figure out how we can get this car working. Because at the end of the day, on Sunday at least, the W13 has tended to be stronger, and that will again need to be the case here if they are to keep the pressure up on Ferrari for second in the Constructors' Championship. This bumpy, slow track, however, was not expected to suit their car. Now, the reason why I think this is so important is because, guys, Mercedes are definitely going for that second spot. I don't think they want to come third. Yes, they may not be able to get first place. However, they do want to experiment. They do want to try and do the best of their ability this year in order to set themselves up for next season as well. It was an especially encouraging afternoon for McLaren, as well as Norris in second, Daniel Ricciardo finished fifth, and a further 2/10 back from his teammate, with the Alpine of Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel, who announced his retirement at the end of 2022 on Thursday, also ahead of Russell and Hamilton. This makes the Silver Arrows the sixth quickest team on raw pace on Friday's running. Early in the second session, Hamilton asked for his gap to the leaders, P8 1.9 to Leclerc in P1. He was told by his race engineer, 1.9 to the same tire. He replied quizzically. Russell too sounded baffled during the session. What the hell is going on in turn 1? Can't get around the corner without locking, he said. Red Bull Sergio Perez, who is in poor run of form, and Alfa Romeo's Valtteri Bottas rounded off the top 10 in 9th and 10th. Earlier in the day, Sainz finished the first practice session quickest, 0.130 seconds ahead of Verstappen, with Leclerc in third, around 3/10 off the pace. The running order may, however, have been thrown out the window, with a high chance of thunderstorms predicted throughout Saturday when qualifying takes place. So, guys, this is going to be a very interesting Grand Prix. There isn't too much to be said, and I do think it is really anyone's ball game. Now, as you all know, the conditions may be different for the Grand Prix that is actually coming up, especially for qualifying and also for the actual race day. So it may look to be a little bit wetter. So, even though the practice sessions we saw your teams such as Red Bull and Ferrari really perform well, and even McLaren, but when the conditions change, will it still be the same? That is still hard to tell, and Mercedes may be able to cheek away with a win. So it will be interesting to see how it all plays out. Let me know your predictions on who you think is going to win. I honestly think Verstappen will probably take first. I really don't see Mercedes doing too well. I think one of them, at least probably Lewis Hamilton, probably even George Russell, could finish at least in the top 10, and I definitely think one of them can at least finish in the top 5. So that's my prediction. Let me know down in the comments what you think. I would love to hear your prediction, what you have for first place, what you also have for second place, and who you have for third. And hopefully that is interesting. But Ferrari and Mercedes, that is going to be a great battle for second place, and it will be interesting to see how it all plays out. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope you did enjoy, and yeah, I'll see you soon. Peace.